is absolutely an invaluable contribution to the knowledge base required to progress gender equality. The good thing about it, well, not just one good, there's many good things about it, but actually having that historical perspective, tracing 20 years and what's happened is really, it kind of helps understand what's worked, maybe what hasn't worked. It gives it's an opportunity to celebrate the things that have worked, and it's an opportunity to review things that kind of take us into the future. It does, and Ibu Andy in particular, cover some really big leaps forward, like such as the sexual violence crime law passed last year, but also it is an opportunity to celebrate the important but incremental steps forward that come from a sustained focus over many decades to improve social protection and access to health and education. But as I said, it also identifies those ongoing challenges and unfinished projects while very helpfully providing recommendations for further action. And I will always make this point that Australia has got as much to learn from Indonesia as Indonesia does from Australia. No one's got this sort of the levels of violence against women in Australia. Gender-based violence is, there's the stats are frightening. So I think 1 woman in 3 each week is the levels of sort of death by intimate partners very high and very much in focus at the moment. So I think that this book really confirms that there's an ongoing piece of collaboration, ongoing conversation, and that it's really important that when we're doing this, we're engaging CSOs through to government policymakers, through to business, through religious leaders, to communities, and that's what this book absolutely reflects. So I couldn't, as I said, couldn't have asked for a better event to be present at the end of this year to really highlight what we're able to do together in gender equality. I think that from my perspective, when we think about what we've got to learn from each other, there are those issues that we're trying to tackle at the moment about how do you provide support for women who face extra barriers, such as those with disability or those living in remote areas, and also the complexities, which I constantly kind of work through in my own mind about how you involve men and boys so that we can create communities that can thrive. And what are the best ways of involving men and boys, not just in a lip service way, but actually in a real way that's fundamentally changes behaviours and sort of challenges, I suppose, norms. I mentioned our development cooperation partnership. We're really proud of what we do in the gender space across all aspects of our development partnership. It cuts across everything that we do, from infrastructure through to climate change, to any part of the development partnership, gender's right there in the middle of it. But specifically in terms of advancing women, we're really pleased on the work that we're doing about advancing women's empowerment in terms of building evidence-based for reform and supporting women-led micro and small medium enterprises, supporting government and civil society to prevent violence against women and to improve access and quality of service to survivors of violence, and also working to increase the participation of women in civil society to involve more women in local and national development planning processes. This is also hard work, and it's hard work for those of you who lead this work. Everyone who's in this space knows how difficult this can be, and sometimes it feels like it's 2 steps forward and 1 step back, and it's sometimes it feels like 2 steps forward and 2 steps back. But the people in this room who drive this work really are incredibly admired and really doing such incredible work, and I'd really like to congratulate all of you. I'd like to hope that we can continue this sort of conversation, this sort of collaboration in the research space. It's just incredibly important. I'd like to also congratulate the editors and all the contributors, because this is an absolute fantastic addition to the evidence base that we need to advance equality and social inclusion everywhere. So thank you once again for inviting me along this afternoon, and congratulations to everyone involved in this exceptionally good piece of research. Thank you.
Thank you, Bapak Chaikal, for your insightful remarks and introduction, and thank you, Ambassador Williams, for sharing your unique insight on the topic. Next, we continue to our next speaker, Please join me in welcoming Ibu Titik Anas, the Special Advisor to Indonesia Minister of Finance, as she shares her keynote remarks. Without further ado, Ibu Titik, the floor is yours.
Her Excellency, Ibu Penny Williams, the Australian Ambassador to Indonesia, Pak Chaikal, Pak Jahen, Bu Angie, and Ibu Andy, also Bu Wiwin, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Shalom, Om Swastiastu, Namo Buddhaya, Salam Kebajikan. Very good afternoon. Please allow me to extend our minister's gratitude and appreciation to the ANU Indonesia Project and LPEM for the invitation. Unfortunately, last minute she couldn't come, although she would be here for sure on her top priority. However, another priority comes up. Mohon maaf ya Bu ini. Our minister deeply regret that she couldn't deliver her keynote remarks by herself for the launch of this important book titled Gender Equality and Diversity in Indonesia, Identifying Progress and Challenges. She believes, also I believe, that the book is not only a collection of crystallized thoughts on gender equality issues, but also a testament to the dedication, research, and shared commitment to foster a nation where every individual is given equal opportunities. The book will be a valuable reminder of the importance of gender equality, our past efforts to narrow the gap, and insights on future actions required to continue addressing gender issues. Our minister would like to say that the topic of the book, just like Ibu Penny mentioned, is very close to her heart. Not only because she's a woman, but also because gender equality is an issue that is fundamentally important for all of us. As this year's Nobel laureate in economic science, Claudia Golden, demonstrated in her research, gender disparities in the labor market persist due to the current work structures, creating obstacles for women in their careers. Beyond anti-discrimination law and fair-minded managers, fundamental shift to the structure of work and the societal recognition of caregiving value are needed to achieve gender equality. As we move forward today, she would like to remind us to embrace inclusivity, challenge stereotypes, and advocate for policies that dismantle barriers. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, gender equality is not always a gender-neutral policy. We should never disregard the fact that women are genetically and physically different from men. Thus, they might have different capacities and limitations. Hence, a gender-neutral policy is not always a right policy. Tailoring to each gender's needs is better than giving the same opportunities for both genders. We should not stop striving for gender empowerment until women and men have equal opportunity, treatment, and access to optimize their capacity. There are several reasons why we must tackle gender inequality once and for all. First, addressing gender inequality is a question of fairness. Women often do not get equal access and opportunity as men do. Sorry, men. Women still have fewer career opportunities and earn less than men. Second, can be no robust economic growth without gender equality. Investment in women will add to the talent pool, which will contribute to economic development and welfare of the society. And third, gender inequality also means no or limited women's participation in the public policy decision-making process. When gender inequality exists, it means that there is no sound governance. Decisions that involve women will add quality, fairness, comprehensiveness, wisdom, and diversity, because women have a distinguished perspective regarding sensitivity to policy. As a result, policies will be more inclusive and have better effect on society. Women have historically borne the brunt of the consequences of crisis or shocks. For example, COVID pandemic had larger impact on women than on men. During the pandemic, female workers saw their working hours slashed by 50%, while male workers saw only 35%. Additionally, as women are more likely to work in informal, temporary, and part-time occupation, 64 million women lost their jobs globally during the pandemic. 740 million female informal workers also saw a 60% drop in income in the first month following the outbreak of the pandemic. The health crisis had added to women's responsibilities, with many having to juggle professional tasks with domestic chores and increase parental duties due to inability to afford childcare services. The impact of climate changes is also not gender neutral, as an estimated 80% of people displaced by climate change are female. Hence, our responses should not be gender neutral either. Countries must adopt a gender-responsive budgetary approach that supports women, men, and marginalized groups while mitigating the harmful effect of climate change. As women receive bigger impact than men during crisis, it led to a bigger global gender inequality gap. Based on the World Economic Forum research, it would take more than 130 years to close the gender gap, an increase from about 100 years of pre-pandemic estimation. Honorable guests, ladies and gentlemen, closing the gender gap is also a priority for Indonesia. In 2023, Indonesia was ranked 87th out of 146 countries in the global gender gap ranking, a 5-rank improvement compared to the previous year. The index measures women's economic opportunities, education, health, and political leadership. This ranking places Indonesia in the 6th position out of 11 ASEAN countries and 12 among G20 countries. However, rank 87 means a lot of homework remains. We see low level of female labor participation and limited presence of women in top management, bureaucracy, and political position. The participation rate of women in our workforce is only 54% compared to 82% for men. It's important to note that around 62% of these women workers in the informal sector. Jobs in the informal sector often lack access to social protection and are characterized by low wages, which makes women vulnerable in their work environment. Similarly, in the financial sector, there is also much work to be done to improve inclusion and literacy. Interestingly though, while women's financial literacy index is slightly higher than men, the inclusion index is a bit lower. At the national level, there are 37 million women on micro, small, and medium enterprises, or about 64% of total MSMEs, and most of them in micro business, which is less productive. We still see there are more MSMEs in Indonesia have not received any financing from formal financial institutions. Hence, the barrier to improve the productivity is there. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, looking at our national progress, our minister would like to share about the ongoing structural reform initiative by the Indonesian government concerning mainstreaming gender equality and overcoming the gender gap issues. The government promotes the gender mainstreaming program in the Indonesian National Medium-Term Development Plan. In our state budget, we have implemented gender budget tagging at the planning, budgeting, and monitoring stages to ensure that our budget also benefit women. Through gender budget tagging, the state budget can strengthen the role of women in providing support and opportunities to contribute at the local and national level. The Indonesian government also provides LPDP scholarship merit-based to pursue higher education locally or abroad at reputable university. 52% of the awardees for the scholarship are women. Although it is merit-based, some preference is given to disadvantaged or group of in the society that need it. We provide equal access to males and females in our program Kartu Prakerja, a platform designed to give job seekers access to training and upskilling. From 2020 to 2022, 17 million benefit from the program and 51% are women. Furthermore, in 2021, the government of Indonesia launched what is called National Women's Financial Inclusion Strategy, which the objective is to lower the gender disparity in economic activities. The government also initiated the Ultra Microfinancing Program to support the female entrepreneur further. During 2017-2022, 26.2 trillion was allocated to 7 million women, which is 90% of the total beneficiaries. These women are mostly housewives and started their small businesses since they received the microloan. Our social protection is also channeled through women. The cash assistance program distribution, one of which is the Family Hope program, disbursed to 10 million families. The cash assistance is transferred directly from the government to female family members in the household. We expect that this will improve financial inclusion by allowing women to open bank accounts so they can receive transfer from the government. At the global level, Indonesia is committed to Women Entrepreneurs Finance Code, working with other financial ecosystem players to increase the funding allocated to women-led micro, small, and medium enterprises. This support is crucial for these small industries to expand their operation and generate economic and social benefit within the respective communities. Esteemed guests, ladies and gentlemen, amid the challenging global economic situation, as Pak Chaikal mentioned, policies that eliminate gender disparities should be an integral part of our structural reform that is key to boosting medium-term growth. Gender equality is a powerful growth engine supporting a more resilient, sustainable, and inclusive economy. There are remaining homework that still requires our focus to achieve gender equality, for instance, equal opportunity in some aspects such as education, health, and economy. Strengthening the collection of gender disaggregated data in various sectors, including finance, is also vital. This data will enhance our effort in providing gender-responsive policies regulations, and programs. Together, these steps will guide us toward a more gender equitable society where both women and men can equally contribute to and benefit from our collective progress. Once again, our minister would like to thank the ANU and LPEM for their ongoing support of Indonesia's development, and she hopes the collaboration continues in the future. Let this book be a catalyst for change, a source of inspiration, and key reference in our work for gender equality. Our minister also wishes you all a productive and fruitful discussion. Once again, congratulations to the launch of the book, to the editors, the authors, the Indonesian project, and my alma mater, ANU. On behalf of Ibu Sri Mulyani Indrawati, our Minister of Finance of Republik Indonesia, thank you very much. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you for your remarks and for launching the book, Ibu Titik Anas. Now we would like to invite Ambassador Penny Williams, Bapak Chaikal Nuryakin, and Ibu Ninuk Pambudy to receive the books as a symbolic act of launching the book to the public. We would also like to invite Ibu Titik Anas, Ibu Angie, and Ibu Diahhadi to present the books as the authors and editors of the book. Please come forward to the stage. First, we would like to invite Ibu Titik Anas to present the book to Ambassador Williams.
Enjoy the book.
Thank you, Ibu Titik. Next, we invite Ibu Angie Bexley to present to Pak Chaikal Nuryakin. And now we invite Ibu Diahhadi Setyonaluri to present to Ibu Ninuk Pambudy. Please give a round of applause to the launching of the book. Thank you, Ibu Angie and Ibu Ruri. Now I would like to invite Ibu Andy Yentriyani, Ibu Wiwin Istanti, and Dr. Diahhadi to come to the podium to join the photo session before we begin on the next session, which is the panel discussion. Please come forward. Okay, thank you, Ibu Penny, Ibu Titik, Ibu Wiwin, and Pak Chaikal. You may kindly return to your seats. And I invite Ibu Angie, Ibu Ruri, Ibu Andy, Ibu Ninuk, and Pak Jahan to take the seats in front as we will begin the panel discussion session. Oh, okay. Okay. Thank you so much, Ambassador Penny Williams, for attending our event.
Bye.
As we delve into the heart of gender equality and diversity in Indonesia, identifying progress and challenges, we have the privilege of engaging in a book discussion with the book editors, authors, and discussant on the progress and challenges of gender equality in Indonesia, as well as the key policy challenges highlighted in the book. The discussion will be led by Pak Jahan Reski, Associate Director for Research, LPEM FEB UI. Pak Jahan, the floor is yours.
Okay. Yes, thank you, Mbak Devina. Selamat siang, good afternoon, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Welcome to our book discussion. So my name is Diahhadi Setyonaluri. I'm the Vice Director for Research at LPEM FEB UI. Thanks for coming for today's event, and also Prof. Meling, thank you for coming for our event today. Let me start my introduction preamble from the back cover of this book. So I've tried to paraphrase. We are not like they're saying, yeah. I've done my best. So in the last 2 decades, gender dynamics in Indonesia, including their roles in power and authority, have been influenced by reformasi, decentralization, and the resurgence of central authority and economic shifts. These developments have led to policy change, a rise in women's political involvement, and emerging forms of varied gender identities. However, it remains to be seen how much the new order's gender order, which center around women's maternal role as a foundation for citizenship, has been contested or re-expressed in new ways, and what will be the current forms of challenges to gender-based power. So that will be the paraphrase from the back cover from this book. And that will be the introduction for this event, because I think, as Ambassador Penny, Pak Haika, and also Bu Titi have mentioned before, this is a really interesting topic. And we are really interested to know what is this book really about. So today we have 4 prominent speakers who will share their views about the development of gender equality and diversity in Indonesia, identifying progress and challenges. And with me, we have 4 speakers. So 2 of the editors, Ibu Dr. Angie Bexley, the head of Technical Partnership Program in KONEKSI Indonesia. Welcome, Ibu. And also our own Ibu Diahhadi Setyonaluri, or we usually call her Ibu Ruri, which is the head of Gender Research Group at LPM, and also the head of Magister for Population. I forgot the name of it. Sorry, Bu. Both of them are the editors of this book, and they're gonna share their views about what will be the motivation and the important aspect from this book. Also joining with us today, Ibu Andy Yentriyani, who is the chairperson for National Commission on Violence Against Women, or KOMNAS Perempuan, and she also the alumni of UI, right, Ibu? So you did your undergrad in international relation in Depok, I think. Who is also one of the book's author, so probably she can also share with us what are her views about the current aspect, especially regarding the violence against women, I think. And finally, this book will be discussed by Ibu Ninuk Pambudy. Ibu Ninuk, she is currently the senior editor for Kompas daily newspaper, and hopefully we can also get some significant comments from Ibu Ninuk. So without further ado, we're gonna have like around 30 to 45 minutes discussion. And let me begin to ask Ibu Angie and Bu Ruri first, as the editors for this book. My first question would be, what were the motivation for bringing gender equality issues in the 2022 Indonesia Update Conference? Silakan, maybe Bu Angie first.
Is it on? Is it on?
It's
Udah ya? Bisa didengar?
ya, bisa, Bu.
Ada. Oke, sorry. Bahasa Inggris ya? Sorry.
Boleh Indonesia juga boleh kalau.
Boleh Indonesia.
Indonesia.
I think it's because it's being filmed. Nggak tahu ya. Karena di filming ya.
Okay.
Anyway, oke.
You can
Thank
mix
you.
between bahasa and English, Bu. Coba.
Makasih ya. Aku
Yes.
selalu campur-campur. Makasih, and thank you for hosting us here today. For me, I think there were 2 main motivations ya. Karena waktu ini saya sebagai gender advisor untuk Indonesia Project, dan juga saya sebagai associate dean atau wakil dekan rekan juga wakil dekan untuk gender equality in the College of Asia Pacific. And we started talking about, the first time that the Indonesia update, ini yang ke-40 sebenarnya. Ini yang 39, but it was the 40th year. Yeah. And in the 40 years, there had only been one Indonesia Update yang fokus kepada gender. Dan itu 20 tahun yang lalu. Waktu itu saya adalah honors student yang sangat enthusiastic and really, really keen to understand everything about Indonesia. And that update, which I think Ibu Meling juga hadir, was the first update I had ever been to. And that was such a moment in time. It was an amazing time, yeah. And Professor Kathy Robinson, sama Sharon Bessel, the co-conveners of that conference, had brought together artists, they brought together legal people, they brought together, and it was just the start of KOMNAS Perempuan, yeah. So it was just like, wow, this is such an amazing energy, these women, this opportunity at the time, yeah. Ini tahun 2002, right? So there was an amazing semangat, there was an amazing sense and effervescence that change could be possible, right? And so we reflected, kok 20 tahun, we don't have any update, yeah, on gender. So we decided to focus, and really for me, remembering that moment and that energy and that drive from these women, I wanted to recreate that and bring the amazing talent, yeah, from junior scholars, mid-career scholars, senior scholars, but not only from academics, but also practitioners, yeah, the people really at the forefront and leading the changes, and also the artists. So we also had an exhibition, so you'll see on the cover, this is print work by one of my dear friends in Jogja, Fitri Karniawati. And so, you know, we can really understand social change, we can understand social change through a gender lens, and we can understand it through all of the disciplines, ekonomi, sosial, politik, dan juga budaya. Yeah, so that was my key motivation, but Luri has other motivations.
Finish? Okay. I thought you're going to add something. Okay, thanks, Ibu. Okay, thanks, Ibu Angie. So maybe next to Ibu Andy, probably, right? So, no, she skipped her part. So, moving around. So we make it. I think, let me start with Ibu Andy, because she's also the author of this book, and she's written about gender violence for women in Indonesia. And I think, what will be the key issues and message from your book chapter, Ibu? Silakan.
Terima kasih. Good afternoon. I was actually about to say that let me answer you in Bahasa Indonesia, because English is actually not even my third language, and it's slightly better than my Chinese, which is very poor. So, but I think first of all, I would really like to thank you, ANU and the Indonesian Project, for this opportunity. I think it is just timely, not only because we just had, I think in 2022, yeah, we just had the anti-sexual violence law, but it is also a time to really reflect on what shall be done next after 2 decades. So my chapter tried to capture the dynamics of women's leadership within 2 decades. What does it necessarily mean when most of the efforts was actually being put laboriously, as being said by Ibu Penny, in policy advocacy sector, and how the issue of sexuality and sexual rights as well as sexual violence become the heart of the battle itself, not only because the transformation of criminal law is one of the first recommendations in the aftermath of May 1998 tragedy, but it is actually situated as the easiest issue to capture voters in any political power struggle in Indonesia, because you can see from the dynamics itself as well as the results, where within the 2 decades, it's not only progresses that we achieved, we also see stagnations, we also see regressions, we also see even how should I a persisting issues that cannot actually be discussed even in the most current situation. So I think the key message is firstly to celebrate the women's leaderships despite all of the stagnations. I mean, like, it is also very important to see the leadership not only in advancing women's rights issues, but also in ensuring democracy works for human rights. And that is actually the key message from the issuance of sexual violence law itself. Not only about the sexual violence and the victims, but how to guard democracy. And in the same time, it actually tried to convey a message that there are a lot of things that need to be anticipated. Because when we look through the 2 decades, it's actually a perennial struggles of these how they call contesting powers. Some of them is actually even started before the independence of Indonesia and still very prominent, and we are still going to face it in the next, like policy battles, name it, the future, even not only at the national level, but even also at the district and even like at the village levels. Thirdly, I think it also conveyed, I really want to convey the message that for human rights and democracy, it is actually a reciprocal relations. You can only advance as far as we can on human rights and women's rights, shall we can also advance democracy in the same time. The regression of democracy, the not accountable policy making processes, the hijacking of democratic mechanisms will at the end also influence the situation of women's rights in Indonesia. And it will put women's rights issue, particularly sexuality and sexual rights issue, in the core of the battle itself to justify the regression. Thank you.
Thank you, Bu Andy. Interesting and very inspiring. Yeah. I thought you're going to speak in Bahasa. No. And then you managed to speak in English for the whole part. Okay. The last, I'm going to move towards Ibu Ninuk. As you have been experiencing in becoming a, mic-nya ya, sorry. As a senior journalist, Ibu, and also someone with background in gender studies, because you did a master here at UI about gender issues, how much do you think the progress Indonesia have achieved in terms of gender equality in the last 20 years?
Ya, thank you. Saya mungkin lebih baik berbahasa Indonesia aja ya. Secara umum, we can see progress. Many facets, many aspect is there is a advancement. For example, we have KOMNAS Perempuan, we have undang-undang anti kekerasan dalam rumah tangga, we have undang-undang pencegahan kekerasan seksual, dan juga tadi marriage age is now the woman movement succeeded in convince the Mahkamah Konstitusi to change the age of marriage for women. I think it's a progress. We can also see through the chapter 3, the book chapter 3 the book about UPI, Kongres Ulama Perempuan Indonesia. I followed the UPI, the first Congress and the second Congress, and I saw the and I also talk with the nyai. They how they strategize to challenge the fatwa, mostly dominated by and hegemonically by kiai, but they can strategize and they talk about sensitive issue like polygamy in Indonesia, woman circumcision, apa lagi ya, role of woman against terrorism. They can talk about many sensitive issues and openly, and how they strategize to have blessing. They're aware that they cannot the gender norm is very very traditional or very conservative in Islam, even in NU, as you are aware that just a few months ago ketua NU itu lambasted the feminism. So it's very difficult, not easy. They have to find ways to how to convince that perempuan ulama nyai can also make fatwa, and the fatwa are also as valid as the fatwa from the kiai, the male ulama. So I think it's progress. Also, it's not easy, and as Ibu Sri Mulyani mentioned in her chapter on page 35, that during the last 20 years, the progress of gender equality has been slow. So we also see the progress, but I think we need to speed up the progress, especially when we want to achieve the goal of 2045, the negara maju, the developed or the rich country, but you need equality and equity for every citizen and no one left behind. But on the other side, as Andy also already said, I also saw as a journalist, I also saw the stagnation or regression, even some issue, then sensitive issue like LGBT. When I start the gender section in Kompas, a newspaper, after the reformation in 1998, I can wrote about LGBT or the gay issue, homosexuality freely. But now we are to be very careful because I don't know, maybe because the media, social media, and also maybe because now because the democracy also open the society to say more openly, even against even to so they can say they are not agree with the something openly, and they feel they can melakukan kekerasan, membuat melakukan demonstrasi, mendemo the media and something like that. Even they can bully the journalists through social media, dan it's a kind of itu another regression juga or stagnation gitu ya. On the other side, we have the keterbukaan, openness, demokrasi. Kalau Andi tadi melihatnya dari sisi politik, how the democracy is hijacked and buat politik kekuasaan dan bisa mempengaruhi perempuan pada saatnya. Tapi on a more personal life, sexual expression, it's also regression is happen also. But on the other side, I saw that, for example, in fashion, in a pop culture, in fashion, for example, hijab is considered not as a religious dress, but is treated as a fashion. So menurut saya, I can argue that it is moderate the tendency toward the exclusivity that the bias for the only for the the bias people that wear the hijab, for example.
Thank you, Ibu Ninuk. So I think, as you've mentioned, there has been some progress, but you also see some regression in terms of stagnation, or we can say that. Do you echo the same message, Bu Ruri? So I think, what are the main message from the conference or also from the book, Ibu Ruri?
Terima kasih Pak Jahen. So I'm going campur-campur juga ya. English is my fourth language. So menurut saya pesan utama dari buku ini seperti tertulis di dalam judulnya. It's actually highlighting. Now I'm getting confused. So it's highlighting the progress, like Mbak Andy and also Bu Ninuk mentioned, but also we tone it down with presenting. Actually, lots of hurdles are coming into the progress itself. So I think Mbak Andy already clearly outlined, telling us the story about Undang-Undang TPKS, but in each chapter there are so many, there's progress, but then hurdles. So, for example, chapter that was wrote, yang ditulis oleh Mbak Santi almarhum dengan Andrea dan Agas, menceritakan tentang di undang-undang untuk meningkatkan usia minimum pernikahan sudah ada. So I think that's a progress. So we have to acknowledge it as a progress. But at the other hand, pengajuan untuk dispensasi ternyata masih banyak diberikan oleh pengadilan agama. Dan 90% dari hasil studinya Puskapa itu dikabulkan. Belum lagi masih ada pernikahan yang tidak tercatat gitu ya, yang tidak tertangkap. That's actually so progress and challenge. And also maybe I will talk a little bit from economics. So sorry, just moving a little bit back to the motivation. I think in the beginning it was just Sarah and I started, but we're like 1.5 economists. So Sarah is an economist, saya setengah ekonom, because I'm doing my demography, and then we got this list of topics. We're quite boring, all economics. And then we're so glad that Angie came in, and then we have very vibrant, list of topics and also speakers. So thanks, Angie, for saving us and not making Indonesia update becoming an economic. Right. Yes. So I think that's the main message. And the chapter written by Sarah Dong and also Nurina Mudikawati also highlight the stubborn issue in economy, that is stagnant in female labor force participation. So Sarah and Dika highlighted some progress. Yes, there is a slight increase in female labor force participation, particularly for the urban and young women. There's a progress in education, improvement in education for women, improvement in formal employment for women. But at the same time, the persistent problem, that is where women drop out after having, whether they get married and so having children, is still there. We've been having this discussion for like 3 decades now about women dropping out from the labor force. And I think there hasn't been any discussion, a clear framework in discussion about policy in addressing such issue. So I think pesannya
sesuai dengan sesuai dengan judulnya, that is there's a progress. I think we have to acknowledge, but also the challenges, and also the book is actually present as a milestone, I think, yeah. So after the 20 years ago, we had Ibu Kathy and also Sharon Bessel started the discussion about gender in Indonesia up to 2002. And I think this book, if I can say it as a milestone, yeah, for, what have we been doing for the last 20 years. Maybe, hopefully, we don't need to wait until 20 years to have another update on the topics of gender. Are you going to be the convener again?
Yeah. Yeah, I'm the moderator. Bu Angie, do you want to add something, Bu, on the what? Yeah,
Just satu
silakan, Ibu.
saja.
Yes.
Pesan yang utama. So I think Ibu Penny actually got it when she said, "Oh, sometimes it's 2 steps forward, and sometimes it's actually 2 steps back." And I wholeheartedly agree with that. I think, and in my notes I've written, it's clear while some things do change, some things stay the same. And I think one of the most enduring challenges for equality is around social norms. And in the book, we talk about the gender ideology of the new order, where, state ideology positioned women as carers, men as breadwinners, power was enshrined in the household head within men. And so while some of these things, the reformasi, all about economic changes, everything that Indonesia's been through, the context changes. Some of these elements are proving very, very hard to dislodge completely. And even they are finding new articulations and expressions, as Andy was saying. Jadi mungkin pesannya harus dijaga ya. Ini yang Orde Baru, unsur-unsur Orde Baru is finding new ways and new expressions and new challenges to this journey of gender equality. It's not an easy road, as Bill Penny also noted, and it's not one way, and so, being understanding, I think, interdisciplinary perspectives from a number of angles, how to really understand society and where these pushbacks are coming from will help analysts and help scholars to be able to define exactly and name it what it is, so we can, policymakers, academics can be better equipped to respond. Itu aja.
So it goes to my last question, Bu Angie and Ibu Ruri. So who should read this book? Semua.
Yeah, semua. Yeah, I think I'm just going to reiterate what Angie mentioned. So because this book also, it provides, multidisciplinary angle, and also, talking from not just even for the economic chapter, it's also discussing about the point from the social norm, social attitude. And I think, yes, scholars, academics, policymakers that is actually working in this space, the gender equality, and also I think everyone who are interested in understanding more about how the society works, and also in for progress, to have a progress untuk mengerucutkan gender gap di berbagai aspek. I think this book will serve as a good reference for everyone. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, apparently this is a bestseller already.
Okay.
It's sold out, I think, in Canberra. Prof. Budi, who unfortunately couldn't make it today, said, I think this is very different book. For 40 years, we produced an update every year.
Let's give a big applause.
Only Every year they produce itu kan refleksi hanya 1 tahun itu.
And no one
Jadi
buys it.
the next year, I think they do in Periplas, they do. But it's only valid for 1 year, right? Because it's just the yearly reflection. Yang biasanya itu hanya yearly reflection. Yang kita ambil 20 years. So we hope that, it'll be around for and still valid, for people to really understand. But to get to the question, we should buy the book. Everyone should buy the book. Anyone who's interested in social change, not just gender issues, but to understand Indonesia, you can do this through a gender lens. So it's not just for those who are interested in gender. I think anyone who's interested in Indonesia, in the problems with democracy, the challenges, should be reading this book. I think anyone who's interested to learn from the new generation of leaders and thinkers across economics, social, politics and culture, you can learn from these amazing scholars that are in this book. And I wanted to end by acknowledging Santi Kusumanangrum, to whom this book, we've dedicated to this, to Santi, and her energy and her work working at the intersections of gender and youth will continue to inspire generations to come. So I wanted to end.
Makasih Bu Rudi dan Bu Angie. Next to Ibu Andy again. So maybe my 2 questions would be, what is the difference between the current version in your book chapter with the existing condition now? Because it's been like 1 year after the donation update. Do you think there's any significant change regarding to what you have been written in your paper, Ibu?
Yeah, Indonesia full of surprises, isn't it? Banyak sekali yang berubah. Tapi first of all, I would like to thank the committee to warming a bit. Sebagai anak yang besar di Pontianak, like really in the garis katulistiwa, I couldn't too cold temperature. Tapi terima kasih. I think when we had the discussion, the presentation, it was also I think a month before. Was it in November, October? September. So it's like, it's just like heading to the revision of penal code. By then, there was this whole discussion about cohabitation, whether or not the legalization of abortion will be permitted, and also there are also like hosted issue during the discussion on sexual violence law, such as the introduction of enforced pregnancy. What about the limitation of women to choose contraception when her husband deny the access, for instance? Would we call it enforced pregnancy? Of course, many of the clerics and other religious leaders deny that possibility. And also the issue about expanding the definition of adultery, which has been, or which was one of the most problematic issues during the first round of deliberation of the bill on sexual violence. So I think by end of 2022 and early January 2023, we got the revision of penal code, and I mean, like, it's not, as I tried to argue in this presentation, it's actually not only about the output, the result of this policy making, but how the policy making is being produced, and what are the forces behind the dialogues, the discussions, and the driving force for the result itself, which is very necessary to be understood to anticipate the next, or other policies to be formalized. It is also a similar force behind this whole polemic on sexual and reproductive rights issue in the revision of health law. The health law is problematic in so many ways, with the doctors and the academics, the medicine scholars, they have their own discussions there, but I would like to focus on sexual and reproductive rights issue and how it is being delivered. Like the previous law on health actually acknowledging the rights to terminate unwanted pregnancy for women victims of sexual violence for 12 months. And the penal code was saying that, oh, we would like to legalize it up to 12 weeks, whilst the revision of penal code said that it is actually up to 14 weeks that is permitted. And that is, you actually see even there is a group trying to object that, and trying to make a new regulation within or provision within the health law. And afterwards, we also have, thankfully, the new law actually also reinforced that the legitimate termination of unwanted pregnancy for women victims of sexual violence is also 14 weeks. But it also needs to be translated into derivative regulations. Not only that we do not have up to now, it's already like 2 years now, almost, of the anti-sexual violence law, that we do not have the derivative regulations, but also the regulations from the health law previously legitimized 12 weeks abortion. In the ministerial regulation, it's actually only allowed 40 days. So there is a reduction from 12 weeks to 40 days. Yeah. And so you see the inconsistencies on that. And this is also because I think I need to tap on what Angie said, because there is also this whole social norm, religious beliefs that also interfere in the implementation of even a good policy for this kind of issue on sexuality, reproductive rights. Now, the other, I think the other updates is actually on Undang-Undang ITE, the Electronic Information and Transaction, which is one of the most problematic. It is not transparent. It is not participatory. Everybody complained. And we know from the issuance of sexual violence law, as well as the revision of penal code, and the data that's showing the dramatic increase of digital violence cannot be tackled under the current law on sexual violence, though it has its own chapter on sexual violence via electronic means, and also the revision on the penal code. We expect to actually put more, strength to governing the online-based gender-based violence. However, because it is never participatory, or it's only like an invited space, very little, like KOMNAS Perempuan tried to correspondent, etc., etc. I think also the civil society organizations, we ended up with nothing changed in the revision of Undang-Undang ITE. It's still actually adopt the previous problematic article, and it actually even expanded to another one. That is exactly the reason why Baik Nuril was actually criminalized, because she actually tried to argue her case through social media. So instead of putting more protection that can promote a better protection from violence, is actually promote, a wider space to ban the spaces for impunity. And I would really like to actually locate this on the fact that the members of members of parliaments are from private sectors. And this is actually one of the driving force for many policies conflicting with other policies that is trying to protect human rights, which has a very firm kind of understanding on affirmative action, not only to women, but also other marginalized groups, including indigenous groups, such as seen in the in the contradiction between the law on environment and Undang-Undang Cipta Kerja on how to handle investment whilst doing infestation on natural resources. So it's not actually about the updates on the issuance of the laws, but actually the consistency of this perennial contestation of the driving forces, and how it actually manifest in the result of the policy making itself. I think that's what I'm.
Thank you, Bu Andy, for your insight. So maybe last question: what is your hope for the improvement in terms of law and regulation? I mean, it is more becoming like participatory, or as you've mentioned, now we are in like the election period. You're gonna ask people to vote for non-private sector candidates in order to make the policy become more generous towards gender issues, or
I also co-author a chapter for Indonesian Update after 10 years of SBY's administration. I would really love to have another one on 10 years after Jokowi's. Because it has to wait until 2024, but after the Serah Terima, then I can say that after 10 years. Now it's only like 9 years something months, right? Yeah, but and I also shared like my own anxiety on how the gender gaps was actually not being tackled as fast and as deep as expected. I think Ibu Titik's remarks in the beginning also show the struggle that we are facing. And I also share a kind of similar opinion with Mas Ariel Haryanto in his opinion. In Kompas, it was like, it's actually not necessarily the result of the election. It is how the civil society and the movement organize themselves to ensure progress will be pursued. So my expectation is actually, after reading, I do agree, this is like a stock taking kind of book. After 2 decades, what do we get? What don't we? What we didn't get at the end of the day, and still need to do it in the future, and also understanding. Like it is only when we consolidate organically and work as an ecosystem that we can pursue the progress. Shall we depend on a kind of momentary possibility or opportunity without a clear agenda and also strategies to consolidate? We will basically doing pocho-pocho. We are struggling, very dynamic or very vibrant according to how the international community like to describe Indonesia civil society organizations. We move right there, and then we still stand still in the exact spot where we begin. So that's my hope.
Seems like pocho-pocho, Bu. Okay. Thank you, Bu Andi. Next to Ibu Ninuk again. So I think the question would be, do you think that the book has captured the challenges as Ibu Ruri and Bu Angie mentioned about gender equality in Indonesia, or do you think there's something that needs to be addressed further in the next chapter or in the next edition of this Indonesia Update, for instance?
Buku ini sebetulnya cukup komprehensif, mencakup begitu banyak aspek, begitu banyak isu, tetapi ada juga hal-hal yang sebetulnya harusnya bisa dilihat lebih jauh dan lebih dalam lagi gitu. Dan bisa lebih keras? Oke. Mungkin harus lebih dekat ya. Banyak hal yang harus digali lebih dalam gitu ya. Salah satu hal itu yang seperti tadi dibilang gender norm itu yang menjadi kembali ke arah yang lebih konservatif dibandingkan ketika kita mau mulai 98. Tadi Angie bilang begitu bergairah sampai lahir Komnas Perempuan dan sebagainya, tapi kok sekarang balik lagi seperti konservatif lagi gitu ya. menurut saya itu harus dilihat juga dari perspektif internasional. Seperti apa sih dunia internasional itu melihat perubahan-perubahan gitu. Karena kita melihat sekarang dunia kembali menjadi konservatif. Bahkan negara-negara yang tadinya kita harapkan mereka menjadi lebih liberal begitu, ternyata kembali konservatif. Eropa misalnya, negara-negara besar dah yang dianggap Amerika mungkin yang dianggap sebagai Australia, Australia itu juga mungkin agak sedikit poco-poco ya, Australia yang tadinya dianggap maju begitu, ternyata tidak memberi contoh yang baik juga gitu. Jadi pengaruh internasional ini tetap harus dilihat, karena salah satu argumen yang dikemukakan adalah kenapa sih kita menjadi lebih konservatif dalam beragama dan sebagainya, itu karena pengaruh dari Timur Tengah gitu kan. Tapi ketika sekarang Saudi Arabia misalnya lebih membuka diri dan menjadi lebih progresif dalam isu-isu perempuan dan sebagainya. Nah, itu kita barangkali perlu melihat juga dampaknya seperti apa sih. Mungkin belum terlalu kelihatan, tetapi kalau ada kesempatan untuk penelitian berikut itu juga sesuatu yang sangat menarik dilihat begitu ya. Kemudian juga menurut saya beberapa isu yang barangkali juga harus diangkat itu adalah perempuan dan climate change. Itu challenge yang luar biasa sekali. Itu cross cutting issue ya, dan juga untuk perempuan itu cross cutting issue sekali. Challenge-nya banyak, mulai dari mungkin budgeting, bahkan untuk secara nasional aja Indonesia kekurangan dana begitu ya. Apalagi untuk yang lebih spesifik misalnya isu-isu perempuan, tapi harusnya perempuan tidak boleh ditinggalkan. Nah, hal-hal yang seperti itu, climate change, kemudian isu-isu saya catat di sini, reproductive health tadi sudah disinggung oleh Andy, dan tapi saya juga ingin melihat sebenarnya dari sisi pop culture. Pop culture ini karena apa sih, young generation, yang inilah ya, population ini kan, populasi kita tuh kan separuh lebih berusia 40 tahun ke bawah, ini juga belum disentuh di sini. Apakah ada perubahan gitu ya, pandangan mereka tentang gender issue gitu? Apa sih mereka paham apa mengenai gender? Mereka paham apa mengenai feminisme? Gitu. Mungkin mereka menganggap feminisme itu nggak perlu lagi barangkali loh ya. Padahal feminisme itu adalah suatu lensa untuk melihat gitu ya. Tetapi mungkin mereka punya pandangan-pandangan sendiri yang itu menarik juga untuk di research gitu. Jadi kalau ada harapan kalau mengharapkan apa yang bisa dilakukan ke depan, sebetulnya banyak sekali ya, reproductive health gitu. Itu ternyata kelihatannya sudah baik seperti ditulis oleh Bu Sri Mulyani, ada anggaran untuk PIL-KB, ada posyandu, ada puskesmas dan sebagainya, tetapi dalam praktek sehari-hari kan suami menentukan perempuan boleh atau tidak, istrinya boleh atau tidak melakukan keluarga berencana gitu. Nah, hal lain mungkin apa yang perlu dilakukan, yaitu bagaimana sih anak-anak muda pada usia di bawah under 40s ini kan mayoritas ya, itu seperti apa mereka sekarang. Kita nggak tahu loh, semua yang kita omongin ini sebenarnya isu yang 20 tahun lalu sudah kita bahas gitu, tapi tidak menyinggung anak-anak muda, terutama yang generasi Z kali ya, yang baru lulus 20 tahun, pasti mereka punya pandangan berbeda. Kita merasakan lah ya, mahasiswa kita, saya kaget-kaget, saya juga masih diminta mengajar di prodi diploma media di UI, pandangan mereka itu beda sekali gitu. Jadi saya rasa itu juga bidang studi yang perlu di research ya, atau hal yang perlu di research untuk mengetahui seperti apa sih dan ke arah mana mereka akan menuju gitu. Apa pandangan mereka? Mereka tentu saja lebih terbuka dan lebih berani, lebih asertif tentu saja. Bahkan ketika mengomentari para calon presiden itu pun mereka pandangannya ini beda sekali dengan pandangan kita. Tetapi persisnya seperti apa sih mereka melihat ini? Dan saya rasa karena di satu sisi ada progres, lagi-lagi ada progres bahwa laki-laki remaja itu atau yang lebih muda usia ini lebih bisa menerima kesetaraan, equality, tapi pada sisi yang lain kekerasan oleh yang muda ini juga terus terjadi berbasis gender ya. Itu terus terjadi. Nah, pada sisi lain tadi saya sempat ngobrol dengan Ibu Meiling, ini yang lansia ini juga harus diperhatikan. Nah, ini juga saya rasa itu sesuatu hal yang penting ya, karena banyak sekali sih saya udah ikut selama pandemi ini, saya ikut beberapa kali Zoom gitu ya, diskusi bagaimana para lansia dan terutama yang perempuan ini juga mengalami kekerasan berbasis gender. Dari keluarganya sendiri, dari lingkungannya, dari orang terdekatnya, dieksploitasi dan terutama perempuan karena selama hidupnya biasanya perempuan itu menjadi mengurus domestik sehingga mereka tidak punya jaminan sosial setelah mereka tua. Nah, hal-hal seperti ini tuh juga perlu diperhatikan karena umur harapan hidup kita bertambah banyak dan pasti akan menimbulkan biaya kesehatan yang lebih tinggi pada akhirnya dan kan no one left behind, jadi orang tua juga nggak boleh left behind gitu. Terima kasih.
Thank you, Ibu. So I think both aspect, younger generation needs to be asked what are their views on these gender issues, and also the older generations what are no one left behind. Yeah. The next conference, yes. Ya, catatan tuh Bu Angie nanti for the next update. Okay, we still have 15 more minutes until 3:20. I'm gonna open to the floor. Silakan Bapak Ibu, it can be in English or in bahasa. Please state your name and then ya, 1, 2, satu lagi. Nggak ada? Ya, silakan. Prof Meiling, oke, silakan Prof. Nama diarahkan ke siapa?
Bahasa Inggris atau bahasa Indonesia?
Terserah aja, nyamannya aja. Indonesia boleh.
Baik, terima kasih. Baik, terima kasih. Nama saya Nahar, saya dari CSIS Indonesia. Terima kasih penjelasannya kepada 4 panelis yang siang sore hari ini menjelaskan, menurut saya cukup menarik pembahasannya. Saya mengapresiasi sebetulnya dari Indonesian Project ini mau membahas secara spesifik tentang gender inequality. Saya percaya bahwa buku ini pasti memberikan input sumbangsih yang cukup signifikan lah untuk diskusi-diskusi di dalam konteks akademik. Namun saya belum membaca bukunya secara lebih lanjut, belum punya juga. Yang mau saya tanyakan maksudnya kalau dari penjelasannya ke 4 panelis mungkin saya melihat isu-isu yang diangkat kalau boleh saya katakan lebih kepada isu-isu tentang hak atau kalau di bahasanya mungkin lebih ke ya liberal mainstream issue, tapi menurut saya ada satu isu gender juga yang menjadi isu yang sudah sangat lama di Indonesia tapi belum banyak yang membahas. Itu adalah isu pekerja rumah tangga. Sebetulnya advokasi perlindungan pekerja rumah tangga di Indonesia sudah sangat lama dilakukan. 19 tahun yang lalu pertama kali draftnya diajukan ke DPR. Lalu Maret lalu draft ini akhirnya disetujui oleh DPR dan dijadikan rancangan undang-undang inisiatif DPR. Tapi sejak Maret itu tidak ada progres yang sampai malam kemarin setahu saya dari Jala PRT dan juga serikat-serikat pekerja rumah tangga itu sudah melakukan aksi ke 130 di gedung DPR dan belum ada tindak lanjutnya lagi. Nah, yang mau saya tanyakan adalah di saat kita mengalami perkembangan pengaruh utamaan isu gender ini yang cukup signifikan juga di dalam konteks Indonesia. Sebetulnya kira-kira apa sih yang membuat isu pekerja rumah tangga secara khusus ini sangat susah untuk masuk ke dalam agenda kita katakan prolegnas dari DPR begitu. Karena kalau dari beberapa waktu lalu saya judi itu ikut hearing di DPR juga, argumen yang dipakai DPR adalah pekerja rumah tangga jika dijadikan sebagai pekerja legal itu justru akan menutup lapangan pekerjaan karena adanya standarisasi dari pekerja rumah tangga nanti akan mendiskualifikasi pekerja-pekerja rumah tangga yang tidak memenuhi standar tersebut. Kalau menurut dari keempat panelis itu bagaimana? Terima kasih.
Thank you Mas Nar. So ini buat semua panelis ya. Oke, baik. Tadi Bapak silakan Pak.
Saya Ridwan, saya dari Alpha Theta. Saya mau bertanya.
Dari mana Pak? Sorry.
Alpha Theta.
Alpha Theta.
Lembaga pendidikan. Saya mau bertanya, apakah di sini buku ini membahas tentang wanita dalam masyarakat adat dan bagaimanakah pengaruh perampasan lahan masyarakat adat menjadi pertambangan, terus dan perkebunan terhadap ketimpangan wanita di masyarakat adat. Itu aja.
Oke, ini berarti question for the editors ya. Nah, buat editors ya. Ya, Prof. Meling.
Terima kasih. And thank you very much for an excellent presentation. And my problem is the letters are very faint and very tiny, so I can't read. I'm going to wait for the ebook. Okay. Listening to your presentation, it's been very enticing to me. And I keep on thinking, why not this? Why not that? Of course, right? The world is much bigger than just a book. But anyway, I was really intrigued by what Ninuk was saying about getting to become more conservative. Is that a consequence or is that really the driving force of this government? Well, I participated, of course, in the earlier book. But, if you think about what we have experienced since Transformation or this century, basically, the world was full of idealism. And, at the beginning of this century, whatever we did was because we were just driven by, we had to transform society, we had to do this and this. And one of it was also strengthening the Menteri Peranan Wanita. That office is dead today, right? What is that a cause or a consequence? Because, you hardly hear anything about gender issues anymore. At least I don't. I feel it's like a dead issue today. Is that the turn towards conservatism? Or is that made because of the minister, the role of the minister? When Jokowi just selected somebody who would just kill the whole thing, and that's what we have today. Nothing is being done. Where is the progress? All we hear is even DPR can't get the 30%, right? And the last issue I was hoping, because this is my interest, and that is, I'm just intrigued by this issue. I'm a docent here, and I'm sure many other docents feel the same. The girls do better in school than the boys, right? Why, in the end, don't the women get further ahead than them? I mean, it's already 20 years. I think more in the bureaucracy, a lot of the pejabat should also be affected. It's not just in universities where the girls do better. The whole world, university students are about 60 and even 70% female today, right? So if you select your employees through testing, there will be more female. So you have several ministries, tenaga kerja, health, education, mostly women there, yet they don't get to the top. Why? I wish you could. Did you ever find out why? Because I'm still waiting for that,
Okay, thanks, Prof. Meiling, for your question. So we have three questions. One is from Nahar CSIS about pekerja rumah tangga. I think it was addressed to all of the panelists, and also from Mas Ridwan Alpatek about masyarakat adat. I think that will be the question for the editors, and the last question from Prof. Meiling, I think, for all of the panelists. Silakan, siapa duluan?
Baik, terima kasih. Saya jawab bahasa Indonesia aja. Jadi terima kasih pertanyaannya. Untuk pekerja rumah tangga sebenarnya masuk di salah satu chapter tentang care work yang ditulis oleh Mbak Adnike Sigiro, Ketua Komnas HAM kita sekarang. Dan dalam chapter tersebut dibahas betapa unpaid care work atau kerja-kerja yang dilakukan di rumah itu sebenarnya secara umum itu undervalued gitu. Jadi entry point-nya adalah tidak hanya yang bentuknya dibayar oleh pekerja rumah tangga, tetapi juga bentuk-bentuk pekerjaan yang dilakukan mostly perempuan di rumah yang tidak di-value. Nah, untuk pekerja rumah tangga itu sendiri, di situ juga dibahas tentang perjalanan panjang RUU menjadi RUU dan juga seperti tidak dipedulikan. Jadi alasannya adalah karena memang pekerjaan di rumah itu undervalued. Dan kedua, saya mungkin tadi ya Mbak, aku ngikutin Mbak Andi, ada kepentingan-kepentingan yang mungkin tidak quote unquote tidak mendukung ya, kalau saya boleh ngomongnya, untuk undang-undang itu disahkan. Jadi kalau saya mengikuti perdebatan tentang pekerja rumah tangga apakah diformalisasi atau sebagainya, isunya adalah selalu misalnya kalau dikasih minimum wage gitu ya, lantas kemudian siapa yang bisa bayar gitu, atau nanti menjadi nggak affordable atau mungkin malah mengurangi permintaan tadi ya, seperti yang disampaikan itu. Tapi saya pikir itu kepentingan middle class gitu ya, yang mungkin memang sengaja membiarkan supaya market ya for cheap labor itu tetap ada. Itu mungkin yang saya bisa sampaikan. Terus kemudian dari mungkin ini nanti Angie mohon dibantu juga. Belum ada pembahasan wanita dalam masyarakat adat, perampasan lahan di pertambangan. Mungkin saya akan jawab praktikal saja ya. Kami sebenarnya menginvite salah satu speaker yang memang ekspertis di bidang tersebut, namun ternyata berhalangan. Tapi
memang
Bumia kan
memang
betul. Jadi beliau tidak bisa dan it's such a short notice ya waktu itu. Jadi praktis saja sih sebenarnya. Tapi kami waktu menyusun topik ingin membuat balance ya, karena banyak isu-isu dalam buku kami ini yang mungkin agak urban bias gitu ya. Jadi kami juga ingin balance dengan isu-isu yang rural atau mungkin yang sebenarnya banyak yang dilupakan menurut saya, seperti isu-isu dalam masyarakat adat gitu. Nah, untuk Prof. Meiling itu pertanyaan susah ya, mungkin Angie. Jadi reformasi Mbak Angie yang paling ini nanti ya. Menurut saya sih, menurut kami, menurut saya ya, jadi lebih konservatif mungkin karena reformasi membuka banyak kesempatan untuk mempraktekkan idealisme mungkin kali ya. Jadi termasuk grup-grup konservatif yang kemudian berkembang gitu. Sehingga saya juga nggak mau bilang bahwa itu kebablasan ya, tapi akhirnya menjadi satu sesuatu yang kemudian besar gitu. Tapi kemudian yang girls do better at school, Ibu. Ya, ini sebenarnya Ibu yang mesti jawab ya. Penelitiannya Bu Meiling gitu. Girls do better at school, tapi ini social norm sih. Jadi di banyak karena kebetulan banyak penelitian saya terkait dengan partisipasi perempuan dan social norms adalah salah satu culprit gitu ya, penyebab bahwa meskipun dia sudah berpendidikan tinggi, tetapi ternyata norma gender itu nggak berubah. Tadi Bu Ninuk mengatakan bagaimana dengan anak-anak muda. Di salah satu studi yang pernah saya lakukan itu usia 18-40 tahun itu relatif sama. Jadi ada survei yang dilakukan Investing in Women juga melihat bahwa antara tahun 2018 dengan kohort 2020 rupanya orang muda ini tidak banyak progresnya gitu. Jadi kayak jalan di tempat atau pocong-pocong tadi ya istilahnya. Jadi tetap sebagian besar mereka menganggap male breadwinning model itu adalah yang paling ideal dan perempuan sebagai caregiver untuk di rumah. Well, yes, tapi menurut saya dengan reformasi, bermunculannya berbagai ide, menurut saya harusnya ada progres juga, terutama di grup muda yang lebih terekspos informasi dari luar dan segala macam. But we do not see it actually. Yeah, that's one.
Di kakak saja waktu saya dapat izin tinggal, dia harus bikin kakak baru karena kakak sebelumnya saya ke kepala rumah. Waktu dia dapat izin tinggal, dia dibikin kakak baru.
Terpisah Bu ya?
Iya. Karena dia harus kepala. So it's the implementation, the social norms and the bureaucracy.
Exactly. But as a young person, young people were actually, kita berasumsi bahwa mereka progresif. Menurut saya sudah ada beberapa, kalau melihat di sosial media kan sudah banyak perdebatannya ya, yang mereka against dengan current birokrasi gitu yang dibilang boomer. So I think there should be progress, but it's not. Maybe I'll just pass it.
Kawinan tidak dirubah.
Yeah. Okay. Bu Angie, silakan. Maybe the question.
Well, yeah, I'm going to take a global view on this.
Yes, that's okay.
Ya, tanggapi tadi juga kita harus lihat itu pola-pola yang global ya, karena it's actually happening everywhere. The weakening of the institutions, but always gender is at the crux of that. So Australia pun itu juga malah weakening kan, mundur. So all of these, so I think there's no simple answer, right? Or else we already would have solved it. The conservative forces come in many ways, and they come in many ways. And it's not just religious, but I totally agree with what Andy was saying. Democracy is being hijacked everywhere, right? It's being hijacked everywhere. And then yang ruang ini semakin sempit kan untuk bagaimana contest that, right? Because the louder the voices, the conservatives always have the loudest voices. So I think Ella Prihatini in our book, she charts the ministerial appointments, the ambassadorial appointments. So maybe Bu Penny interested in that, yeah. And it's just not that simple, yeah. It's just not that simple that the government can have a gender mainstreaming policy, gender mainstreaming objectives. They can't even take that into their own work, right? So, and it's very dependent on the person. So I think under Jokowi has had the most amount of women ministers, and then the ambassadors. the most women ambassadors is under Jokowi, right? So, but it's still very personal based, and there's no the gender mainstreaming, the intinya belum ini apply, but it's happening everywhere, right? So what can we do? What can we proactively do is protect the spaces that we have. These little ruang yang sempit ini harus dijaga ya, harus dijaga betul, harus dipromote, and we need to strengthen the little tiny bits of light coming in through the cracks of light, right? We need to strengthen that. And I totally agree with what Andy was saying. It's an ecosystem approach, right? So that's why the book charts out social, economics, political, and cultural, because without seeing all of those together, tidak akan bergerak ya. Satu-satu and then mundur. Ujung-ujungnya jangan.
Thank you, Bu Angie. Bu Andi, Bu Ninuk, we have 7 more minutes, so please make it short ya. Silakan Bu Andi dulu.
Satu. Baik. Kalau buat saya, I would really like to invite everyone to read this book in also not being drawn by the specificity, tapi melihat benang merah yang memungkinkan kita membangun strateginya. Saya pikir buku ini tuh betul-betul mencoba untuk membincang bahwa kita menjalani 20 tahun dengan segenap pengetahuan yang membuat kita sadar bahwa isu kekerasan terhadap perempuan dan hak perempuan ataupun diskriminasi itu berbasis gender itu tidak dapat didekati hanya dengan satu pemahaman soal patriarki. Dia adalah akar yang besar, tapi ada akar-akar lain yang juga sama besarnya, yaitu ketimpangan relasi yang sifatnya sangat struktural dan sistemik, seperti feodalisme, kapitalisme, macam-macam lainnya yang bekerja bersamaan dan bertautan. Karena itu misalnya kenapa undang-undang PPRT sulit muncul, itu bukan cuma sekedar karena isu perempuan care work tidak dipandang, tetapi mempertahankan status quo dari pekerja rumah tangga tanpa dilindungi itu memiliki kontribusi besar pada keuntungan status quo yang hadir di dalam relasi ruang-ruang itu. Bukan saja di ruang di dalam rumah tangganya, tetapi seluruh ruang industrialisasi keuntungan yang ingin dibangun. Dan buat saya pembelajaran paling penting karena kita lihat pertanyaannya Bu Meling, mengapa setelah 20 tahun when gender is actually politically correct, sentence 30% representation is politically correct, women's leadership is politically correct gitu. Itulah pelajaran tentang tokenism. Jika anak muda tidak hati-hati dengan penggunaan tokenism ini, at the end of the day, the next 20 years, possibly we can do also like a kind of review on where are the youth of Indonesia gitu ya. Karena setelah 20 tahun semua menggunakan kata youth, does it necessarily mean anything? Gitu. Apakah pencapaiannya significant enough to say that it becomes like a force gitu. Sementara ada contesting forces di waktu yang bersama. Kelompok perempuan never a singular entity. When people said that, oh you are taking a liberal issue, I keep on asking the question. Maksudmu liberal itu yang macam mana? Gitu. Karena kita bisa aja punya pemahaman yang berbeda apa itu liberal issues gitu. Is sexual and sexuality a liberal issue? Or political representation with quota 30% is a liberal women's issues, karena itu yang ada di liberal feminist movement from the very beginning gitu kan, dan sexual and sexual autonomy is a completely a radical kind of more perspective under the feminist movement, atau yang mana including intersectionality dengan kawan-kawan masyarakat adat dan seterusnya itu. Di saat yang bersamaan menurut saya yang juga sangat menarik adalah bagaimana dynamic internasional mempengaruhi, including cooperation, the usage of the words, and how it has to be contested even in the 8 kind of schemes I mean like no offense gitu ya, tapi maksudnya kata Getsi itu kan ada gender semuanya itu kan ya, dia datang dengan kontestasinya sendiri terhadap kelompok-kelompok kepentingan yang sama-sama marginalized gitu. Dan kita belum punya that sophistication, kecanggihan untuk membawa itu menjadi sebuah strategi yang saling complementary dan menguatkan instead of competing even at this point gitu. Nah, itu yang menurut saya akan menjadi challenge ke depannya gitu. Nah, terkait dengan institusinya sendiri menurut saya sangat menarik. Saya baru habis baca juga laporan Komnas Perempuan 25 tahun. Dan saya terlibat ya dalam hampir tiga periode mempertahankan Kementerian Pemberdayaan Perempuan dan Perlindungan Anak bareng Bu Meling, Bu Saparina dan lainnya, harus terus menerus bikin kayak position paper why we need this kementerian gitu ya, sambil sementara yang saat bersamaan mempertahankan dan memperjuangkan penguatan Komnas Perempuan sebagai an independent institution. Dan ini yang menarik karena katanya CSW tahun depan itu akan bicara soal the institutions. Nah, di 8 Maret ke depan. Tapi saya juga belajar dari teman-teman Korea Selatan, teman-teman di Amerika Selatan dan lain-lain yang kemudian tiba-tiba isunya, mereka kan kayak leading ya kalau di isu itu juga tiba-tiba presiden yang menang tuh bilang saya mau bubarin aja kementerian itu yang serupa dengan KPPA di Korea Selatan dan sebagainya. Dan menempatkan perempuan sebagai masalah paling utama atas ketidakberdayaan laki-laki. Ya kan di Korea Selatan itu kehilangan pekerjaan dan decline of kependudukan itu loh, fertility rate itu gitu kan. Jadi ada seorang orang kawan di EPWLD pada saat ulang tahun Komnas Perempuan yang membuat presentasi sangat baik tentang bagaimana paradigma pembangunan yang sangat ekonomis itu dengan pendekatan pasca Perang Dunia Kedua dan juga kapitalisme yang bekerja di dalam pemerintahan serta masyarakat di Korea Selatan yang menyebabkan misalnya bagi perempuan untuk bisa memecah the glass ceiling dengan tidak adanya support untuk dukungan bagi maternity rights-nya dia, maka pilihannya menjadi sangat sulit. Karena kan misalnya kamu baru lulus kuliah, either you pursue your career or you put the family first. Jika negara tidak menempatkan itu sebagai satu platform yang dia harus bantu, sama seperti LPDP yang nulis bahwa batas untuk S3 adalah 40 tahun, sementara mereka harus juga bekerja dulu untuk keluarga dan sebagainya. Ada cara pandang afirmasi yang harus kita pecah. Kalau tidak, itu urusan tentang 30% representasi perempuan, the gender mainstreaming, women's leaderships will be taken only as politically correct term instead of a working operational framework to progress. Ya, dan tentang jadi sebetulnya kementerian ini ngapain aja? Bu, kita bikin chapter itu 10 tahun kemudian. 10 tahun nanti di bulan Oktober 2024. Tapi juga ada banyak hal yang sudah saya mau menggunakan kesempatan juga bilang bahwa despite all of the limitations ya, saya juga harus mengapresiasi misalnya ada upaya untuk membangun database kekerasan terhadap perempuan di bawah Kementerian Pemberdayaan Perempuan. Mereka diberikan tugas untuk menjadi mekanisme perjuangan. I don't want to be the PR, but I think it worth of a critical review on how the institutionalization is being practiced gitu, including the appointments of the ministry. The minister, I mean, itu. Makasih.
Mantap. Terakhir, Bu.
Sudah diborong semua sama Andi. Ya, saya mau ini aja, mau komentar pendek-pendek saja. Tentang Kementerian Pemberdayaan Perempuan tuh memang ya ada perasaan mendua begitu ya. Kalau kita memberikan tempat khusus seperti Kementerian Pemberdayaan Perempuan gitu ya, seolah-olah ini bukan isu mainstream gitu. Jadi ini saya cuma ingat apa yang dikatakan Bu Saparina Sadli ketika Kompas membuat seksi khusus mengenai gender, dikasih halaman khusus, dikasih bahkan waktu itu ada tabloidnya khusus gitu. Tapi Bu Saparina protes dan saya langsung mikir juga ketika itu. Kalau kamu taruh itu sebagai suatu seksi khusus, orang selalu melihat bahwa gender itu sesuatu yang terpisah, bukan sesuatu yang mainstream. Oke, oh benar juga ya. Setelah itu oke lah. Memang karena waktu itu harga kertas jadi mahal akibat devaluasi ya kan, kita mulai tahun 98 si tabloid itu tutup. Masuklah dia ke dalam koran utamanya gitu. Di dalam situ. Nah, ketika dia di dalam koran utama itu kan kita setiap kali harus rapat untuk berebut halaman. Nah, itu akhirnya dia masuk ke dalam percakapan redaksi. Dan ketika dia masuk dalam percakapan redaksi, itu semua terbuka pikirannya. Karena awal-awalnya ketika saya memulai itu bersama Maria Hartiningsih, kita berdua itu disebut perempuan galak. Karena memperjuangkan hak-hak perempuan itu disebutnya perempuan galak. Ya mereka bercanda, tapi karena mereka nggak ngerti gitu. Iya, nah tapi ada seriusnya. Tapi artinya ini pertanyaan-pertanyaan yang apa ya Bu ya? Apakah kita perlu punya kementerian khusus gitu? Tapi kalau nggak ada kementerian khusus, terus bagaimana mengarus utamakan gender ini di dalam setiap kegiatan negara lah kira-kira begitu? Terus siapa yang ngurusin gitu ya? Dan saya juga mesti mengapresiasi bahwa kementerian ini ternyata sudah tadi Andi bilang membangun data, tapi saya juga harus mengapresiasi bahwa data terpilah gender itu sekarang ada. Dulu kan kita nggak punya data terpilah gender.
Berapa sih di
BPS itu saya mengerjakan ini dari sejak reformasi. Waktu pertama kali reformasi susah Bu cari data tentang perempuan. Baru mungkin 10-15 tahun terakhir BPS melakukan, dan kementerian ini juga membantu mendorong untuk terjadinya data terpilah gender. Itu kan yang selalu dituntut ya. Kemudian juga kesadaran bahwa ekonomi perempuan itu memiliki sesuatu nilai, itu juga baru belakangan. Saya ingat sekali seorang menteri pintar banget perempuan, saya gak usah sebut namanya deh, nggak enak. Dia bilang, nggak enak. Ini di dalam satu diskusi terbuka, dia bilang kalau ekonomi perempuan itu dihitung terpisah, itu akan mengganggu perhitungan seluruh ekonomi global dan nasional dan global. Saya sampai bengong, gitu ya. Hampir percaya, tapi saya nggak percaya. Dan sekarang ternyata kan si Ibu Menteri itu berubah pikiran, berubah omongan dan berubah tindakan. Jadi artinya memang harus ada perbaikan terus lah ya. Kita mudah-mudahan nggak poco-poco, maju gitu ya. Dan kalau khusus tentang mengenai rumah tangga tadi, itu banyak alasannya sih. Kalau dibilang bias kelas menengah, iya, karena saya pernah diundang dan pernah diundang dalam satu diskusi, dan di situ ada anggota DPR, ada NGO-nya juga dan sebagainya gitu. Salah seorang anggota DPR dari suatu partai mengatakan bahwa kalau undang-undang PRT ini disetujui, siapa yang diuntungkan? Bagaimana negara justru melindungi para ART ini, PRT, mereka nggak mau disebut ART, mereka tetap mau disebutnya PRT. Bagaimana melindunginya? Karena ketika ada agen, karena itu kan harus pakai agen, kita nggak bisa hire sendiri kan, harus pakai agen. Ini jangan-jangan agen-agen ini yang akan dapat keuntungan. Balik lagi, negara dituntut untuk melindungi, apakah itu siap atau tidak. Kedua, bias kelas menengahnya adalah para majikan ini akan bertanya, dia mendapat PRT ini mendapatkan hak-haknya. Apa hak-hak untuk saya? Karena ada gaji, ada gaji, terus kemudian harus ada standar dong. Mereka menetapkan standar. Nah, itu ada hal-hal seperti itu. Hal yang lain yang saya juga nggak kepikiran tadinya adalah bagaimana dengan keluarga berpenghasilan menengah sedang deh, menengah mungkin agak menengah ke bawah. Ketika suami istri harus bekerja, mereka pasti memerlukan PRT. Kalau mahal, terus gimana? Itu jangan bisa backlash nggak ya? Akhirnya perempuan tinggal di rumah karena dia terpaksa harus mengurus keluarga dan anak. Jadi tidak hitam putih. Walaupun saya juga mendukung bahwa harus ada perlindungan. Itu aja. Makasih.
Oke. Makasih. Jadi let's give a round of applause to all of these prominent speakers. Waktunya nggak cukup ternyata. Jadi maybe we need another Another roadshow mungkin Bu Angie ya terkait dengan launch bukunya. Bu Ruri kayaknya senang kalau bisa.
Kalau sorry, mungkin satu aja saya mau usul kepada Bu Angie dan Bu Ruri ini kalau bisa diterjemahkan ke dalam bahasa Indonesia dan harganya lebih murah supaya lebih banyak yang baca. Itu aja. Terima kasih.
Thank you Bu. But it is in Periplus ya Bu ya? It's being sold in Periplus. Okay. I think I've seen it in the airport. Your book ya. Jadi yang belum di depan ada yang jual. Nggak tahu masih ada atau enggak ya? Masih ada ya Bu Lydia ya? Bisa dipesan. Tapi kalau enggak, I think I've seen it in Periplus. So Periplus. Jadi kalau mau ya se-Indonesia. Tapi harganya mahal. Iya, tapi harganya mahal ya. Kalau di sini subsidi.
It's not.
Iya. Ya.
There are some, ada beberapa bab yang free download.
Okay. So maybe you can download it through IC's website. Yeah. Okay. So sorry, I'm not good at timekeeping, but thanks for attending today's meeting. I wouldn't conclude anything today, but please read the book. Please buy it. I think you can ask Ibu Lydia where we can get the discount price for the book. Thank you for your attention and ketemu lagi in another or further LPM's meeting. Saya tutup. Selamat sore. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Okay, thank you.